find out the purpose, we need to go and access several mythologies and give a synopsis on what happened to us. What happened to us. And a lot of times we get back, especially the Africans or the black people, we have to reiterate that because we're talking internationally. We get into it because we want to find out how we fell to such a low point. But what we don't realize is we fell to a low point when we first came in to humanity. When we first became locked into the human stage. And that's where we need to go. And then we can think. So we'll go into a bit of the synopsis on this so we can answer later on what we're supposed to be doing. So basically, let me take you through a few things. Prior to this particular universe, what we would call the known existence of the Milky Way galaxy or what have you, because we it's relevant to the Earth, we inhabited several primal worlds.
Okay.
And those primal worlds, well, they came in 1998 and they said, well, this particular universe is something like 14 billion years. So the primal worlds that we inhabited before this particular creation, which is about 14 billion years, we just give a number just for a synopsis. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You never really know, but let's get to kind of round this thing off. Prior to this particular creation, which is about 14 billion years, we inhabited several primal worlds that existed about 14 billion years prior to it falling or demise. You see what I'm saying? So we existed in these particular primal worlds. And those particular primal worlds were these high superior deities. And these high superior deities, in so many words, got old and started falling asleep or losing power. Their children rose up, which would be the gods that exist today, the ones we worship. Their children, those primal deities or entities, children rose up and thrust their parents into a physical existence, and they became humans. So we are the parents of the gods that we worship today.
Wow.
You see?
Right.
And became humans. And so in our human existence, what we were supposed to do was to go to an incubation stage of the mummy that you see Osiris wrapped in the mummy.
Right.
Which was a cocoon. And it was a cooking vessel to cook the soul into perfection and sift out the flaws that made us fall in the first place. You see, there was a flaw in us that made us fall in the first place. And for so many years, millions of years, we had to sift out the certain flaws to perfection.
Right.
Thus leads us to the present situation of the perfected stone, the philosopher's stone, or the great works, or the golden fleece, the holy grail, the Excalibur, all these different systems that tell you about this perfection. The Christos, the Christ form, which is the perfected soul, perfected stone. So what happened was we took on a physical existence. Now, when we first took on this physical existence, we could maneuver just as gods. And that's where you get your Lemurian and your Atlantean periods. Okay. So we were into what is called a semi-physical world. So in those particular days, the physical world was like a faint shadow, and the spiritual world was clear. As the vibratory rate fell and we became more encased into the physical, the spiritual world became a faint shadow and the physical world became visible. And we sunk lower and lower into humanism, into a particular aspect. we used to have multiple gifts. Clairvoyance, clairaudio, we could fly, we could do just about everything you see a superhero can do.
Right.
And it was maybe hundreds of different gifts that was reduced down to the 7 or the 5 senses that we ended up with, the 5 senses. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And that primal world was covered over, that God form was covered over with something called the elder seal or the elder sign, and was covered over with now what you call the physical brain. The physical brain is the enemy, and humanity is the enemy. And up under the physical brain is the primal world, which is the pineal gland. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Which is the pineal gland. And so we talk about an incubation period, which the inner world, which is the pineal gland, the kundalini energies, the chakras, there's 160 chakras. You see what I'm saying?
Body, right. Yes.
Yes. And when you look up into space, when you can see these chakras and you can see these particular souls, when you look up in space, those are the souls that's down here inside of the human body, covered up, and we are dreaming outwardly. So we have a series of dreams that we call the illusionary phenomenon that we call reality. It's nothing but a trick from the brain.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? To give us a series of illusions that don't even exist while the soul slept. And as the soul slept, these series of dreams became known as the ego. And the ego, the self that you identify with now, that what you call yourself a human.
Right.
And as that, and it supposedly thinks that it is real, but it is not. It is only a construct or a projection of one's dreams coming from the soul. So we created. Go ahead.
I was going to say that is perfect because I do have some questions about the soul. I just want to interject to everybody.
Yes.
Welcome again. We are listening to Brother Bobby Hemmitt. In just a short moment, we will start to open up the phone lines. So if you have a question and you want to call in, you can definitely go ahead and reach us at 646-652-2711, and we'll go ahead and try to get to your questions. So, Bobby, with all of that being said and really trying to pull this together, that definitely takes me to the question that I did have for you, and I want you to see, I know we sort of talked about it and you mentioned it, about the 8 primordial gods and goddesses. If you can speak on that, and also a question that has come up several different times, I know, with the conscious community and those of us who study these particular areas, did the gods ever walk the face of the earth? And you're saying, yes, they did. And so my question now is, do they walk the face of the earth now?
No, okay. Okay. All right. With the 8 primordial gods on earth, they later on became the 8 chakras. You got 7 major chakras. They got one called the 8th chakra, or the height. You see what I'm saying? As far as major chakras, your 8 primordial deities, which used to be, you could even go with the later mythology of Isis, Osiris, Horus, Set, the Nut, Geb, so on. Those primordial deities. They exist within us as the chakras, and naturally the Horus, which would be the final implementation, would be the pineal gland, the Horus or the Mayat, because there's a dual figure. It's an androgynous figure called Hor, Ma, which is Mayat, Ku. Horus and Mayat are Heru, Ma, Ku. Heru and Mayat in a pyramid. Ku means pyramid. So Mayat would also be a form of the pineal gland, the finishing form of that. So the Mayat, most people think that it's physical principles, and yes, they used to have the same principles to govern society, but Mayat means a perfection. In the spirit world, it means the perfecting the last result. It's called the tikkun in Kabbalah, the perfecting principle. You see what I'm saying? So, Heru Har-Ma-Ku, Har-Ma-Ku. So the primordial deities later on became encased in the human body, as the chakra systems. Now, it's interesting here.